Welcome to Building a Live Rig for Electronic Music, Part 1. Freebeat. Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome to Freebeat. Today's patron shout out goes to Adam Pritchard. Thank you so very much for the support. So welcome to Part 1 of, I guess we can call this a video journal, about building a live rig for performing electronic music, well, live. If you don't know, I was scheduled to do a mini tour back in July, so earlier in the year I started building a live rig. Unfortunately that tour fell through, and looking back on it, that live rig was not really that great. It was all focused around the MPC-1, which for me had been a very difficult piece of gear to use. I just never really clicked with it, and I had a bunch of crashing issues, and yeah, looking back I wonder what the hell I was really thinking. Choosing a piece of gear that had crashed so much for me to go, into a live performance where really crashes cannot happen. Anyway, I gave up on the idea of playing live for a bit, but now I have once again returned to wanting to do that, and I'm taking matters into my own hands. I'm booking my own shows, and I'm making all the contacts myself rather than relying on anyone else to handle it for me. I'm going to make sure things don't fall through and just be in charge of my own destiny. And that process is actually already underway by the time you're watching this video, which is very, very exciting. So I decided it was time to build a live rig that I could depend on and would offer me the flexibility to play both my existing Freebeat arrangements as well as play and perform new stuff live. And as you can see, I've got quite the setup here. Also, I am filming this on my phone, so sorry if anything is weird with the camera. I've never used this phone before. It's a Google Pixel 8, so hopefully it does okay. Also, there's going to be no audio examples of the rig here. This is more going to be a discussion about the whys in terms of why I picked the gear to use and how I plan on using it. So hopefully you're down for that. I know some of you will be, some of you won't be, but that's what this video is going to be. I'm sure in part 2, we will get into actually hearing what the rig sounds like. So it all started here with the drums. Now, if you don't know, I'm a drummer. Drums are my main instrument. Been a drummer for over 20 years on all levels and basically all platforms. So I did not want to give up playing drums live. However, I didn't want to sit down at the kit. That's boring. I like being able to stand and kind of jump around with the audience and, or at least I want to. I haven't been able to experience that really yet. So I want to be able to do that. So I went with the SPD-SX here as my drum controller with an external pad connected to it. When the time comes for the actual shows, I will probably swap out for the bigger pad here. And then I also have this kick drum pedal down here. Please ignore the cables. But yeah, all of that is plugged into the SPD-SX. However, I'm not using too many of the internal sounds here on the SPD-SX, and that's because those are all just samples. There's really no way for me to express myself with them. I basically hit it, and it plays the sound that it's supposed to. That's it. That's where the 1010 Razzmatazz comes in. I did a video on this last week, talking about how its combination of 2 FM oscillators plus a custom sample, plus a whole bunch of modulatable parameters with velocity really makes this an incredibly expressive and playable machine. And the sounds I can coax out of it are so dynamic, and I keep saying it, but so expressive. So the SPD-SX is controlling the 1010 Razzmatazz via MIDI. So that's where I started. I knew I wanted to play drums live, and yeah, that was the easiest way for me to do it. The 1010 Razzmatazz had been on my wish list for a while. Glad I finally pulled the trigger. Absolutely loving it. Then I knew I also wanted to play keys live. However, I didn't really know how I wanted to do that. Now, the easiest and fastest way for me to start playing with that was actually with the Roland E4, which is a vocal effects unit. I've got this SM57 plugged into it, which I also realized could just double as my, just live mic for addressing the crowd. So that worked out well. But it takes MIDI in for pitch correction, and it can do up to 4-note polyphony. So I've got the Arturia KeyStep 37 actually controlling the Roland E4 here, and it kind of doubles as a synth, which is really, really cool. I can do some awesome stuff with my voice with the vocoder and the formant slider there. It's got reverb, which actually sounds really gorgeous. I love the reverb on the E4. And yeah, just a nice way for me to be able to play keys and use my voice. Then we'll come over here to the latest addition to the setup, because the more I played with the E4, the more I realized that I also did want a proper synthesizer. That's where this comes in. This is the Modal Cobalt 5S. It's a 5-voice, what do they call it? Extended virtual analog synth. I wanted something that sounded huge but didn't take up a ton of space, and this was it. This thing sounds phenomenal. I absolutely love it. You'll hear it fairly shortly, like I said, hopefully in part 2, maybe even sooner than that if I do like the proper kind of, Freebeat unboxing and first impressions next week. It sounds incredible. It's a virtual analog synth, but it sounds great. There's so many amazing presets, and I was actually able to, I'm using the wrong hand for this, I was actually able to dial in a lot of my own very, very quickly using the editor on the computer, and then pop them on here, and then just good to go. It sounds terrific. I really do love it. I'm actually running it into the input on the 1010 Razzmatazz right now. That's so I can run it through the Razzmatazz's reverb, because the Cobalt 5S does not have reverb inherently, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it won't matter in the final setup either. I'm also using the MIDI through function of the E4 to control the Cobalt 5S over here with the KeyStep 37 over here. So MIDI channel 1 is the E4, MIDI channel 2 is the 5S. It allows me to play keys no matter which station I'm at, which that was another thing that I wanted to incorporate into this setup that I knew very early on. I wanted to have 2 different stations. So we've got station 1 and station 2. I really like the idea of moving around on stage, and even if it's just a couple feet, I think it's going to go a long way to helping the show feel not as static. Now over here at station 2, we've got a couple pieces of gear that I haven't yet talked about on the channel. This is a big secret I've been keeping from all of you. I've had this Roland SP404 Mark II on loan from Zone since March, I think. I tried to film an unboxing and first impressions video with it, but I did not know what it was, really. I did not know how to use it. I was very confused. There was like no play button. There's, no really like super traditional songwriting methods on it. So I just kind of put it in a drawer and forgot about it, basically, for a couple months. And it wasn't until I was at Roland's booth at KnobCon last month, and I met Dustin from Roland, and he had his personal modular rig paired up with the SP404, and he said something to me that made it all click. It's going to be kind of silly when you hear it, but he said that the SP404 is essentially an SP-DSX over here for non-drummers. Now, I know the SP series has been around before the SPD series, don't worry, but that's when it kind of clicked. It's like, oh, this is all about the samples and just putting them on pads, putting whatever you want on pads, patterns, samples, one-shots, loops, and then just messing with all of those with amazing effects, and that's its whole thing. That's what it does. So when I got home from KnobCon, I pulled out the SP404 Mark II, and I put a couple backing tracks on it from the normal Freebeat Live, the live stream shows that would normally live on the SP-DSX. I put them on here and kind of practiced firing them off, and it kind of worked, but it was kind of frustrating as well. And then I learned about the pattern sequencer, which basically allows you to queue up different patterns to follow one after the other. So I can have this pattern going right here. At any point I have a free hand when I'm like drumming or playing keys. I can reach over, pop a button, and now it's queued up and ready to go. And there we go. It switched over to the new pattern, just like that. Since then, I have been obsessed with chopping up all of my old backing tracks and actually, tracking them out in Ableton, taking different parts, putting them into the SP404 Mark II, and it's really given me new ways to play my songs because I can kind of arrange them on the fly now as I'm playing drums and keys to them. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's going to work really, really well in a live environment. I haven't really even touched on all the effects yet. We'll get into that in just a minute. Last up here, it's the Polyend Play. You'll notice I don't really have it plugged in yet. That's because I was just filming something else with it over at the other setup. But yes, I took this home from KnobCon, and as soon as I really started to learn it, I realized it was going to be essential to the live rig. The most improvisational part of the setup for sure. It's very generative, and it's a lot of fun to jam along with on the drums. Depending, on the samples you have pulled up on here, you can get some really cool stuff going, just some awesome randomization, and I can't wait to showcase playing live with it because it's going to be a lot of fun. It also has the ability to map some of these knobs to MIDI CCs on other pieces of gear, which is really great. I think I'll be able to access some parameters of the Cobalt here, the 5S, and also the Razzmatazz. And I'm sure I'll find other ways to use those as well. But yeah, an awesome live tool for sure. And that brings us to this empty space up here. Now there's one major thing that I am missing, and you'll probably notice it is a mixer to get all of this working together. Right now everything's kind of haphazardly daisy-chained into each other with some of the jankiest cables that I've had for decades. New cables are also on the list as well once I have the exact setup figured out. The mixer that I'm thinking about going with is the 1010 Blue Box. It's 6 stereo inputs and then 3 different outputs that can each have their own mix. It's got reverb and delay effect sends for each track. It's got EQ per track. It's got onboard recording with multi-track via micro SD, which is super cool. Basically everything I need in a unit, and it's a little on the pricier side for what it does, but it's also the only thing that I could find that really fits in this space here. I do want to leave a little bit of space open as well for possibly a Roland S1, or maybe even like a 1010 Fireball, or one more synth possibly, depending on how deep I go with this, because it's getting there. It's getting there, definitely. But yeah, the 1010 Blue Box is looking like the mixer I'm going to wind up going with. Very, very excited to give that a shot with this setup. It should work wonderfully. Then I'm also considering a Korg Nano Control 2 to go on this little stretchy phone stand here, mapped into the 1010, just so I can easily access via MIDI sliders per track, effect sends, mute solos, things like that. I did mention the effects in the SP404. The intention is to run all of the Razzmatazz's audio through the SP404 and through bus 2. So have bus 1 be the effects for all of the internal stuff, so all of the loops and backing stuff for the show, and then have bus 2 be the drum, so I can run those through separate effects. And that's where I'm at right now for the entire live rig. It's really coming together. I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait for you all to see it in action. Also, don't worry, I'm going to be doing separate standalone videos for the Cobalt 5S and the SP404, and I'm sure the Blue Box, and more Razzmatazz material coming, more Poly and Play material coming, and what the hell, I'll probably cover the E4 more as well, because I really do love that thing. So that's where the live rig is at right now. Again, just so excited to share this with you all. I wanted to do this video not only for you, but also for me, so I can kind of see the progress of where we're at. I'm really glad that beforehand I sat down and kind of mapped everything out, where I wanted to go, what direction I wanted to go in. I think it's coming together. I think we're getting there. So I do hope you found this video informative, or at least entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you can always leave a dislike. That's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.